Welcome to Commander Central, episode 37. Today we are going to talk about rats, both relentless and colony thereof. And we'll be doing that with Commander Time's Patrick Sippola, a man who will be known henceforth as the Ginger King of the Rats. I think that's his new title, and we're going to make that stick, I think.
I will not bow down to him.
Before that, we'll talk about some games we played and check in the social media and maybe just BS a little bit. I am Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
So first things first, it's actually spring. It's actually like warm out, and people are wearing shorts, and I had to rake my lawn, and the 10 inches of snow we had 2 weeks ago is gone. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
I feel great.
It's that time of year. And speaking of that time of year, Dominaria actually officially hit last weekend. Max and I played in the pre-release. Chris worked kind of at the shop for the pre-release. And they were sold out by
Sunday.
Saturday at midnight, they sold out their last 20-some kits.
And I was seeing that everywhere. Like most shops were out by Saturday.
Most shops were.
Mm-hmm.
Some bad shops weren't, but most shops were.
Shade.
So I played against Max. Actually, I played against Max in the first round. We got our decks and shuffled everything up and put our decks in. Like, let's do a practice game or two together, because you always do that. And then when the first pairs got called, I had to play Max. Of all the people.
And I was not looking forward to it because in the test games, I just got trampled every time.
And then we went to 3.
We went to 3. And I won.
Yeah, Max pulled it out. Despite Chris thinking on Twitter.
Yeah, I lost that bet.
I just, black-green grindiness, I also had that kicker that gains you 10 life. And
twice you shot that off.
I did it. He bounced it. I'm like, okay, here you go. No counterspell.
Ugh, that was rough.
Why would you bounce that?
Because I needed to stay alive. I had Slin Voda, and I had to bounce everything, and I thought I could maybe get through with that 8 damage guy down, and it just wasn't quite enough.
I just dropped all my elves and was like, okay, I have blockers.
In the game after that, too, the guy I played against dropped a turn 5 Yargle, and then a turn 6 Yargle.
Oh.
But the only reason I survived is I had 2 Icy Manipulators out, and I could keep them locked down.
Oh.
And he was mad. He's like, I can't believe I have 2 Yargles out and I can't do anything.
Aren't they legendary?
They're not.
Okay.
It is.
Yeah.
I let him. I let him play 2 Yargles and didn't do anything about it.
Judge.
Huh. So then I would have won even. Oh, I won the game, so I would have won even faster. I didn't even think about that.
Yep.
Yeah, it is indeed legendary for sure.
What else?
Wow.
We cracked our boxes.
We did. It was fun. I just enjoyed even opening packs. Like there was just so many legendaries and so much stuff. I got a Karn. Did you get anything great?
I got a Teferi, a Lyra, and a Moldothra. And
you put the Teferi straight into your deck, and
we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Cheater.
So one quick little brief story that I will touch on before we move on to games we played was I mentioned here like a month or 2 ago that I was actually going into my doctor to see about having ADD. And I went in this morning. And so I walk into the office, wait in the waiting room. He comes out to get me, or the nurse comes out, and I walk in, and he introduces himself, and we shake hands and walk back to his office and sit down. And he's like, okay, well, we're going to do some tests here first. And the first question is, what's my name?
What?
And I had forgotten it already. In the 12 seconds since he introduced himself, I had forgotten his name. So
I'm sorry. I think any normal person would have forgotten just that fast.
So I'm like, I'm off to a great start. And the second thing I want to mention, my wife was talking to a coworker, the art teacher at her school, and they were going to go out for drinks one night, and tonight actually. My wife said, "Oh, I can't go on Thursday because my husband's recording." I said, "Oh, what's he recording?" "Oh, a podcast." She's like, "Oh, well, what for?" "It's a game, you wouldn't know it." "Well, what game?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's a card game, Magic." And she's like, "I play Magic."
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so she said she was going to listen. So this is a shout out to the art teacher at my wife's school, whose name I've also forgotten.
Oh no!
Since my wife told me several times. So shout out to her.
Yeah. This is all I told Dana when he told me about this. I'm like, well, you won't miss any more triggers now.
Right.
Put it like that.
Right. If I actually go on a medication, I will hopefully not realize there's 2 Yargles in play and not do anything about it.
Glass half full. We'll
right,
go that
exactly.
way.
All right. So let's talk about some games because Max got to play one with at least one of your new cards.
I played with, at least one of my new cards. I put Teferi, Dominaria Protector, or whatever his name is, into Brago.
And I saw a picture of it, so you got it out.
I got it out on turn 3.
Oh, that's rough.
And I slow played the beginning of that game because I had an opening hand of land, mana vault, and a chromatic lantern. I'm like, okay, I'm going to slow play and just play a land on turn 1 and pass. Because
Sure.
I was playing with people who know the deck. They don't want to deal with it. Turn 2 comes, drop the mana vault, drop the other land, play Brago. Turn 3, play the lantern, cast Teferi. And I blinked him a few times and eventually got to the point where I had him ready to ult on my next turn when it swung around, and another end hit him in the face.
But he's just value. I mean, untap 2 lands for counter spells and draw a card. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was nice. I always had to untap my lands. I didn't have to touch my opponents.
Right.
I planned ahead.
And I think we talked about that on Slack, but I don't think we mentioned it on the show or anything, because there was a rules note that came out about that. You have to untap tapped lands. The way that particular clause is worded, the lands have to be tapped in order to untap them.
Makes sense.
Now you can still just like when it's on the stack, even just tap your 2 lands and untap them. But yeah, because there are some that are worded a certain way where you can just untap untapped lands already just to use the trigger or something.
Yeah.
But in that particular case, they have to be lands that are tapped.
But
so
the benefit of blinking him, though, is I could untap 4 lands a turn.
Right, yeah.
So I just planned ahead, and it made a really nice of dropping all those, like, your shock lands and stuff. Oh, I don't want to take the 2 because I'm just going to untap them with Teferi.
Well, at that point, too, between Brago untapping all your mana rocks and Teferi untapping a good chunk of your lands,
Yep.
I mean, you're just finishing every turn with all your mana free.
Yeah. I actually got to cast an Azor. First time I've ever drawn that card in that deck.
Because that's been in your deck for a while.
Yep. He got countered right away.
Nobody wanted to deal
Nobody
with
wanted to
you.
deal. They let Teferi resolve, and then they countered Azor.
Well, especially then, because with all that mana free, you can use your mana on the Sphinx's Rev, and then all your stuff comes untapped anyway, so who cares?
Yeah.
That's just free garbage draw. Oh, that's Brago.
You're such a cheater.
So did you play anything this week, Chris?
Not Commander.
I wasn't there at all on Tuesday. I had stuff.
I heard you
going
were cleaning out your gutters or something.
I had to get someone to come to do it because my roof is just too steep and I will absolutely fall off and die if I try to get up there and do it myself. So I figured I don't want to do that. I'm going to try to avoid breaking my neck. So I had a couple people come look at how much it would cost to clean off my gutters. And I've got like moss growing on one side of my roof too that needs to get
joy
sprayed off. And it's actually, it wound up not being that expensive to get done, but I don't want. It's much cheaper than it is me falling off and having a broken neck or something.
Yeah, I
like
was
that.
curious where you were because Max is there. He's playing. I'm sitting there. I ate some food, looking around. Max came over. I'm like, "Where's Dana?" Oh, he's got something going on. I'm like, Tuesday though. What's going on that he's missing Tuesday?
Who died?
So you didn't play any Commander. Did you play anything else interesting the last week or two?
Played Modern.
How's that been going for you?
Pretty good.
You had to take a break after your last tournament. You were mad.
I'm fairly angry. We won't get into the details of 45 shells flying everywhere. But
You
anyways.
almost shot your deck. Right?
No, I built a new deck 2 nights ago. Blue Moon. And I've fallen in love with this deck.
Nice.
It is
I
awesome.
love Blue Moon.
I would not have expected you to be playing Blue Moon.
I feel like a dirty player. Like I was playing against my good friend Nate and I Kiki comboed on him. I'm like, I feel so dirty. And he's like, why? I'm like, if I do this in Commander, people get very mad.
I voiced
he
up
goes,
there.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not mad that you do it like that. I'm like, okay, fine. We'll just keep doing it then.
Yeah, Modern that's a whole different deal too. When you go to Modern. I actually played a brawl game the other night on Cockatrice just to try it out with a couple friends. I played 2 games, and I got to see a couple new commanders. I got to see Traxos, Scourge of Krug, which I think it was a whole Bajir per deck originally, and he switched to Traxos. So it came out a little bit slower, but Traxos wearing 2 swords is not a good time.
How are they building it? Oh, for regular Commander?
Yeah.
But how are they building it? Well, okay, if it's regular Commander,
Actually, I'm sorry.
use...
Yeah, I did. We did 2 games. One was Brawl and one was regular Commander.
Okay.
And the Brawl, the regular Commander game was Scourge of Krug, and he had so it was just a Voltron deck, but at one point he had 2 swords on and something else. It wasn't Argentum armor, but something else. But you're like, oh, And Lightning Greaves on top
Yeah.
of it, so you couldn't touch it. That's brutal.
A 7/7 for 4 mana, and if you are just playing Voltron, you're untapping it probably on turn 4 if you have
Any
the right
mana rocks
Yeah.
you play
Right,
anything.
in a colorless
oh.
deck, like in that deck, you might as well ignore the doesn't untap clause because every spell in a colorless deck untaps it pretty much.
I want to build that deck now. That sounds like fun.
It was cool. I actually liked seeing it.
Yeah.
I
And he
would
has
totally-
trample.
I would totally
Right.
rip my Ural deck apart to build that one. So like, I only want one Voltron deck. I don't need more than one.
Yeah, no, it was fun to see, and I don't think you'll see a ton of them. So I liked seeing that. And then we did one brawl game, and I played with Tatiova.
Okay.
Which was fun. I still don't. There's cards I had in the deck that should have been in the deck, and I think I need to just have more beaters because I had no problem ramping stuff out, but I think I just needed more like generic beat sticks. And there was a Super Friends Joda deck that got played, and somebody deep freeze Joda right after he hit the field, so
Oh.
he just did nothing.
Oh.
The game. It was interesting. I liked what Brawl felt like to me was like when we do those pre-con leagues where we have the pre-cons when they first come out and you just play with them stock and then like maybe put $1 into it the next week and then like $5, whatever. It felt like that where you're playing with a lot of cards that you're not used to being that weak, which is always interesting.
Hmm.
But what it did is I played the one game and it was fun. And I'm like, I want to play regular Commander now, which is the same thing we do with the pre-con league where we play one game. We're like, okay, I'm good for the night. I want to play with the real deck now.
Yep.
And that's what Brawl felt like to me. Like it was fun enough. And I'm sure it'll probably be a semi-successful format, I would think. But it just made me want to play Commander. So maybe it'll make new players want to, you have some new player who's like trying Brawl and like, hey kid, try this.
You want some candy?
Just a little taste. Just a little taste of this Commander deck.
In his windowless van, everybody. Dana in his windowless
Free
van.
candy. So anyway, that was my Brawl experience. I'm gonna try it again a few times. I want to give it a full test drive, but it was okay.
Awesome.
So might as well move on to social media. We had quite a few things that came through. I mean, at this point, like we used to be able to just like read the 2 comments we got from people, and now we just have there's just too much.
Well, I will say Twitter is blowing up. Everyone's talking about Dominaria.
Yeah.
The big thing that I saw today was everyone's talking about the verses of buying packs and buying singles.
Yes.
That was like the big conversation going on.
And Max and I both bought boxes, like we said.
But
That's
don't.
never a good idea. But we just wanted to do it because Dominaria was such a fun looking set, and
And the shop gave us a good deal on
Yeah.
it. And so support your local game store, everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
so we had at least one good comment on Facebook.
Yes, we heard from a Charlie Watts, and he said, "Hey y'all, been listening to your podcast for a while now, and I can say you might just be my favorite out there. Especially, he especially likes when we go over games that we played.
Well, which we just did. So there
Yeah.
we
we
go.
did,
Just,
indeed,
just for you.
indeed. He also brought up that he was looking for deck lists, which I want to reiterate. I think we've said it a few times, but we do post them every time that we set up for a new
New episode.
cast gets released.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Should
there's
be in the
always
show
links
notes.
for them. Yep.
But I think you sent him your
Yep, I
direct
sent him
to
the
that
link.
show.
Yep.
Have you got your recruiter for that deck yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's why I sent him in the comment. I'm like, this has not been updated since Masters 25 released.
Yes, so like Chris said, those are in our show notes on every episode to each of our individual tapped out deck pages. So you can go take a look at all of our decks and tinker and copy and do whatever you want with them.
Well, we heard from this nice gentleman on Facebook, but everyone else, you can reach us on multiple different formats. Twitter, @CMDR Central. Of course, the Facebook, like I just said, by searching us CMDR Central. YouTube, CMDR Central. And online at cmdrcentral.com.
And we are on Patreon. If you want to support the show, search us up on Patreon by searching CMDR Central. And while we're talking about Patreon, we have a lot of new Patreon pledges to announce this week. So first off, thank you to everybody who has been pledging or just started pledging. We really appreciate that. It helps cover our costs and doing some exciting things in the future. So first off, we want to say thank you to George Mustaklam, William Chasen, Scott Paris, and we have a trader in our Patreon.
What?
Oh,
Commander Cookout is a part of our Patreon now.
I mean,
Spies.
I guess we'll take a couple bucks from them.
But how does the exchange rate work from Canadian
Well,
to American?
So if it's like $4 being sent our way from them, I think that's 22 cents, if I'm doing the math right on that Canadian. And a duck. 22 cents and a duck. I think that's how that works.
Well, thank you, everybody, including Ryan and Brando up there in Canada, and we will see you in Vegas, where we will be kicking your teeth in with our Angel Tribal Atraxa deck.
Yeah, I believe we actually got a little bit of trash talked our direction about the Project Atraxa showdown coming from these guys who are just going to try to Labman win with their alt-win condition deck.
Alt-win Turbo Fog.
So that's going to be
Yep.
Turbo Fog?
I have been confirmed. That's what it is.
All right. So there might be Helix Pinnacle kind of stuff in there. I bet there's a Labman in that deck.
Oh, there
I bet
has to
there's
be.
a Labman. Oh, that'd be rough. That'd be a rough way to lose that showdown to a Lab Maniac.
Shame. You know what this reminds me of? I went and saw Super Troopers 2 this weekend, and it was about Canadians versus U.S. people. So I am curious to see how this is going to turn out.
What was I watching last night? I was watching something, and Brett the Hitman Hart was in it.
Whoa.
He had like a little tiny bit part for some reason, and that was the first thing I thought of was the CCL guys for some because they talk about wrestling enough on there.
You guys do a great show, and I love listening to you every week. But for some reason, when we do the trash talk, I just picture you as Terrence and Phillip from South Park.
I could see that. That makes sense.
So yes, we will blame Canada.
All right, so let's get to the main body of the show here. We're going to be talking about Relentless Rats and Colony of Rats. In particular, friend of the show, Patrick Sippola's Relentless Rats deck, which I guess now is turning into a Colony of Rats deck. And we have Patrick on the show, something we've threatened to do in the past and never actually managed to make follow through. So, Patrick, are you there? Say hi.
Hello, I'm Patrick Sippola.
Welcome aboard. We decided your title was going to now be the Ginger King of the Rats. Is that fine?
It's close enough to
It's
an
cool.
accurate title.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. So introduce yourself here a little bit, Patrick. You're a writer at EDH Rec. For anybody who doesn't know, what's the article series you write there?
I write Combo Corner. It's a semi-monthly article series. I say semi-monthly because I have just been busy looking for jobs, and that kind of takes precedence over writing a monthly article. But the general gist of it is I take either a weird card or some sort of weird interaction, build it out into an EDH deck, explain what it does, how it goes about doing it, and how to beat it. And any weird judge calls you might need to call for if you end up playing the deck.
So everything that could possibly go right or wrong, you break it all down.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal.
And in addition to that, your other claim to fame is you're on another podcast, Commander Time.
Yeah, with Dean Goody and Nate Burgess.
I actually just talked to Nate last night about something else. So we're having Commander Time.
Secrets.
Yeah, Commander Time, Commander Central interface all over the place. That was for the EDH Rec podcast, actually, is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So for those that haven't listened to Commander Time, give us a little synopsis of what that show is about.
Essentially, Nate, Dean, and I are all brewers, like really deep at heart. Every time we see a new commander spoiled or like anything, the first thing we do is we look at it and then we go, I'm going to build a deck around this just to see what it looks like. And then we want to play it against each other. And so that's what we do. We each call a commander anytime a set is revealed, and then we just pit them against each other. So that's kind of, and then we talk about why we did it.
And you guys have done what are you up to, show 20 something now?
Yeah, we're up to show 20 or something. 21, 20 something.
So you're kind of also bi-weekly-ish there.
Yeah. We tend to release more when there's a new set released, because then there is more new commanders to brew around, or new combos or anything like that.
So speaking of you guys brew over new sets, Dominaria pre-release was last weekend. Did you attend?
I did the noon pre-release because I can't stay up that late anymore.
That was kind of the same deal we had going here.
Yeah. I went 3-1, had a pretty weird pool where I had like 8 removal spells in black. So I was just like,
Nice.
I'm gonna be black, and then we're gonna find out what color can add creatures to this. And turned out that none of them really could, but I went with white because then I could play Ariel without having to splash for it, and she kind of just ends things.
Nice.
That's
the
awesome.
Yeah, that's the 4 mana make knights, tap knights to kill knights, or kill not knights, but well,
Killing a
technically
creature.
knights too. Yeah, kill a creature.
Was that your promo?
It was not. My promo was the wizard who has an alternate casting cost where you can tap an artifact.
The
Oh, sure.
Jinn.
Yeah, the Jinn.
Yeah, so that guy was. So I was really disappointed since that guy's gonna have a promo out soon. So it's like, what's even the point of him? And the other one was precognition field.
Which is a good card.
Yeah. I'm actually wondering if I should put that someplace, but I'm not quite sure where.
The guy across from Max and I, when he was opening his kit, cracked
Promo Jaya.
Promo Jaya and then a Karn. And like and I opened Slyn Voda and that 6 or 7 drop Black Vampire were my 2 promos. And Max's wasn't a lot better than that.
No, I had Hinterland Harbor and a Slimefoot.
And you know what, Harbor's nice, but I mean, it's not what you want in your pre-release kit. You want like something that's a bomb in a draft.
No, I didn't even play those colors.
All right. So Patrick, how long have you been playing Magic and Commander specifically?
I have been playing Magic since middle school.
Oh wow.
So yeah. Let's see. I was introduced it the summer of my 8th grade year, I suppose it would be, which turns out was Apocalypse. Once I Googled, which turns out to be about 2001, which makes me feel very old. But
Nah, you're fine.
Yeah.
Compared to us, you were just fine. Compared to
Oh,
me
man.
specifically, you are just fine.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah. And then Commander, it's been since about Return to Ravnica block is the first real Commander game that kind of came into. Up until then, the format my friends and I played was 60 card kitchen table, that fabled version, and
Right.
Rainbow Stair Highlander.
What is Rainbow Stair Highlander?
All right, so you have a 60 card deck. You have to play all 5 colors, and for each color you can only have a 1 1-drop, 1 2-drop, 1 3-drop, 1 4-drop, 1 5-drop, and 1 6-drop.
Of any card type, so that we're
Yeah,
on one
any-
drop
so-
period.
Yep, it's a 1 1-drop for blue, 1 1-drop for green, and it is structured exactly that way.
So what kind of sadist came up with this idea for a format?
I don't know, but it's still one of my friends' like his favorite format ever. He had like a nasty Slivers deck. He had a really good Allies deck for a while. The only thing I could really come up with at the time was a Slivers land destruction deck.
Oh no.
So I ran literally every single color has land destruction. So
Right,
I just
sure.
went out and found them, and then anytime I couldn't find a CMC that did land destruction, I just put Slivers in instead.
Nice. Well, hey, 5 colors. You might as well. That's as good a synergy as you're going to get between creature types and 5 colors. So why not?
Exactly.
I kind of want to play that format.
Chris is like not his head. He's into it now. He likes it.
It's way more difficult than you expect it to be at first.
I think
and
that's
then-
what's
because
drawing me to it.
Yeah, and then you also have to end up like running 5 and 6 drops because you have to. There's
Patrick, so what made you originally start with Relentless Rats for your deck?
So it turns out that my very first commander deck that like I built from scratch was Meren Relentless Rats. Like I have been on this train for quite some time now. I mean, my second deck was just cards I had, and I made Tristani because it was Return to Ravnica block, so had to
Nice.
do that. But as a combo player and as somebody who knew myself very well, I really liked the idea of breaking one of the like key rules to Commander, which is you can only play one card of any type, and so it was Rat. I chose Relentless Rats, and that led me down to a kind of like your classic Meren mono black Thrumming Stone into like 25 Relentless Rats and a couple other like just random spells to help me find Thrumming Stone deck. And it's a fun card.
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
No.
And it was the first one that did that, right? I think there was nothing else. Because
next one.
It's only been the 2 Rats and Shadowborn Apostles that let you break that rule.
Right. That's the only set. I mean, the first time like it popped up on Gatherer for me, I was just like, what? No.
Right.
No way, you can do that? And then I immediately messaged my friend, and he was just like, yeah, you can do that. That's something that has been around for a while. And I was like, but even if? And then I Google, and oh man, it sent me.
That's awesome.
And then he was like, have you ever heard of this card called Thrumming Stone? And I was like, no.
What?
Should I know it? What is Ripple? Oh my God, you can ripple off of your own Ripple. I'm gonna cast my whole deck.
So who was the creator before you switched to Meren?
It was Maronar.
Okay.
So the one rat lord.
Okay, so you were playing mono black up until that point.
Right.
And then Meren gets released in, is it C14 or C15? So did you switch? Did you know that's what you wanted right away once you saw it?
Not at all. I had a Meren sitting around for a while. I didn't almost like a year to maybe 2 years later, I all of a sudden I was after like having Relentless Rats deck. I would bring it to my play group every week, and I just wouldn't pull it out. I knew I needed to do something with it. You know, it's that kind of like you look at it and you just kind of go, no, I don't really. I mean, I know I could play it, but I don't really want to. And I also knew that from set to set, there was hardly ever going to be anything that would change about the deck. So it's not very exciting that way. But then one night I was just like, wait a second. What if I put Meren in there, and then I wouldn't have to be so afraid of board wipes all the time? And then the deck kind of built itself from there. And I became quite happy with how it turned out.
So you built the deck. We got to play against it last fall. You came over to Eau Claire here, and we all played a few games. And I played with the deck. And then I would imagine it stayed pretty static. But then the first M25 spoilers came out, and we saw that Rats were getting reprinted. And then I remember you being like, "All right, now I can get foils cheap." So you were super pumped about that for like,
I was very excited
for like 10 to 12 days or so.
Yeah, I was super excited. I had already begun foiling out my deck and like really pimping it out. I bought like almost all of the really cheap foils for it that I could, so that I could do that. And I was just like, oh man, finding foil Relentless Rats is really, really rough. I don't look forward to trying to foil the rats out. And then, hey, sweet, I can get a new art, which is kind of lame, but I'll go for it. At least, you know.
When you're trying to be budget conscious, sometimes you got to go for the lame art.
Yeah, and so I was kind of hoping for at least maybe bring a spotlight to Relentless Rats, and maybe people will be like, oh, I have a foil one of those. I wonder if they're worth anything, and maybe put it up on TCG Player or something like that. I might be able to snatch them up that way or something like that. And then the other shoe fell, and the release notes were leaked in China.
Which is probably actually a good thing, because you got to see the spoiler at least a couple weeks early instead of going out there and snapping up a bunch of foil Relentless Rats.
Yeah, it turns out that like oh man, the very first time I read the card, it almost felt like I got kicked in the stomach.
Ouch.
Because for years now, I have kind of tied a good portion of my Commander identity to Relentless Rats, and I was just like, there's just no way that they're ever going to print, you know, pack rat with the exact same thing. So you know,
Right.
who wants to do that?
Well, and that is a thing that people do too. Like people get either kind of tied to their deck as that's their thing, and everyone in their play group knows them for that one deck, and that was your thing. Like rats became your thing.
Yeah, that was my thing. My play group always they've had to morph to fit to fight against Relentless Rats. Like, you know, make sure they actually have blockers on turn 3 or whatever.
And that's how you became known across the land as the Ginger King of the Rats.
Right. That and being ginger helps.
Right.
But it turns out that even if so I guess this kind of moves into the why I made the switch into Rat Colony, is that there's a couple of really big problems with Relentless Rats that Rat Colony kind of takes care of.
And what would that be?
The first one is that it's 2 mana with 1 black pip. So that if you ever wanted to feel like you are struggling on mana, even though you have, like 10 lands out, is to run a Relentless Rats deck and have like only have 3 black sources. Because you can only cast 1 rat, no matter how much you discount the cost of it. You can only cast the 1 rat because you only have 3 black mana.
Right.
And that takes away 2. So you're kind of stuck there. And so that really warps how your land base looks, really warps what kind of spells you can actually cast when, your almost all of your 3 drops are 1 black.
Well, and it's also kind of multiplicative too. Like when I first saw it, I was like, well, it's 1 mana cheaper and that's nice. But it's 1 mana cheaper when you're casting 1. When you go cast that second rat in the turn, you've saved yourself 2 mana, which is almost enough mana oftentimes to cast the third one. So like that's the difference plenty often between being able to cast additional rats or additional other things over the course of the turn. That adds up really quickly in a deck where you want to be putting a lot of bodies in the field.
I mean, the biggest change is at turn 6, if I've managed to actually draw a couple lands in the way, is it's either 2 Relentless Rats or 3 Colony Rats. And 3 is much better than 2 in this case, because we're just counting raw numbers here, and that's what really matters.
So now, do you plan on leaving any Relentless Rats in the deck just like out of tradition, or are you replacing them entirely with Colony Rats?
They're getting completely replaced.
You're merciless.
Yeah, I mean,
sentiment.
The reality is that for the math, just like the plain Thrumming Stone math, I already run too few.
Sure.
Relentless Rat Rat Colony for the Thrumming Stone into cast. I run 20. It should actually be closer to 25 for like the pure 1 in 4 chance to actually cast every single one out.
Sure.
But I'm somebody who doesn't actually mind whiffing every once in a while, especially if it means it gives me like a little bit more game elsewhere in the in it. Like it allows me to run something like removal or card draw or something or maybe another tutor to find Thrumming Stone. These are all things that I would also like to be able to do, but if I have 25 slots taken, that's a bit much.
That's always kind of the problem with Rats or with Shadowborn Apostles, is to hit the density you want of those cards, you almost have to cut into the other things you want to run. So you have to either decide, I want to run the correct amount of these creatures to do the things I want to do every single time, or I have to just deal with not having quite as many in order to run the other cards that you maybe need to have the deck function as well.
Exactly. I mean, and the fact of the matter is, if you're going to be running like a tribal deck or something like that, there's actually a couple of really cool rats you could be playing. I'm just saying. And if you are being forced to just run more Relentless Rats instead of those other rats, you kind of lose out on that.
Well, and we'll touch on that a little bit, maybe because we'll start going through the individual cards in the deck here in a minute. But that's a good point. I'll mention one of them right now is like Pack Rat. Not only is that just like a great card in general, but there's some pretty decent synergy baked into that here as well, because you are discarding a card to power up Pack Rat or to make a copy of Pack Rat, but you're playing Meren, where you can then often just bring that discarded card back into play.
Exactly.
So you're not just running the rats necessarily because they're rats and you want to have the theme. Then there's some pretty decent synergy and reasons to run the other rats.
Yeah. And bringing in Meren, that's another point. Is at 2, it becomes at the second death of my of my rat colony, I can start bringing them back instead of having to wait for the third one. It's a lot easier to get 2 experience counters than it is to get 3 experience counters. I'll tell you what.
For sure. I hadn't even thought of that, but yeah, no, definitely. Particularly because Meren tends to get, Meren gets targeted. At least it does where we play for the most part.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. You get it down there and you try your hardest to make it seem like Meren isn't a threat, but it doesn't really work.
Right.
And you just kind of silently sit there and go, like, it's like totally busted if you can manage to get a Sakura tribe elder out there and, sacrifice and do all of that. But there isn't a ton of self-sacrifice in this particular version. So you kind of end up just kind of hoping for the best in Relentless Rats.
So let's take a look at the deck here. Let's just look at the lands first. You're running 35 lands, but pretty much every duel that I would want to run. Do either of you two gentlemen here with me in the room have anything to say about the land base? Or any questions for Patrick? I see, as befits the King of the Rats, you're running Bayou.
Yeah.
Is that a new addition? Because I don't think you had that last fall in the deck.
No. I finally went through.
You sold a kidney to get a Bayou?
Yeah, basically
Which
sold
is worth it.
off.
That's a good call.
Yeah, it's a good call. And I was really looking for another Swamp Forest. And we have unfortunately not been blessed with the enemy color cycle duels in the last couple sets. And you just kind of get to the point where you're like, I really need a Bayou. What do I got to sell to get one? Oh, no. And you really just, like, really the only land I'm missing in terms of filter land, or in terms of dual lands, is the filter land. And it's just because I don't own one. I'm looking to pick up the expedition one at some point. So if you have one that I can purchase for free, send it to me. I will.
Yeah, if you're
going to
get an
take
expedition, I would do it now because they are getting bought out hard.
I know.
But the regular filters have been dropping. Although, is that one of the? Was it the allies that got reprinted or the enemies?
No, the enemies got reprinted.
Okay, so that should be those should at least be available from 25. I actually didn't have very many of those either. I've been kind of picking them up 1 or 2 a week just because I want to get at least half a play set of most of them. But yeah, those have been tough to find the last few years.
Oh yeah.
So let's see. I have one suggestion for a land, and it's a card I like a lot. I like Ash Barrens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing I was wondering is, would Unclaimed Territory maybe work better in that slot? Because it doesn't come into play tapped, so you don't lose anything. It does always tap for a colorless, but set to rats, it's going to let you make the black mana you need for rats every single time.
The biggest problem with that is I'm already gonna, like, yes, it does do the black, but what it won't do is find me the green.
Gotcha.
Finding green is really super important, and which is why I love Ash Barrens.
I suppose because you're only running 4 forests, so just having that one green source is oftentimes enough, and if that gets you that one green source, okay, no, that makes sense. It's too bad that Cavern of Souls costs $90 now.
I would put that in here if given the chance.
And I actually just looked. That's $400 and 4 ducks in Canadian currency.
Oh, shots fired!
Which is referencing something that you probably missed earlier in the show, Patrick. But yeah, in Cavern Souls would be perfect. But yeah, $90 is insane.
Yeah.
And actually, Path of Ancestry too. I looked at that. I forgot that cares about your commander's creature type, because if it let you pick a creature type, that would be great too, but it doesn't.
It would be broken.
And I got one other land that popped up for me. I'll quick throw out there, and I don't know if it would be any good or not, but I could see situations where it would be, and that's Mirror Pool, because it lets you throw an extra rat down, and there's situations where like I've got 5 rats down that puts 6 down, or which then makes them all 1 stronger. I don't know if it's worth it necessarily, but I thought maybe it is.
Okay, so I'll tell you why it isn't worth it.
Okay.
At least for this deck. If you, we're going to move right over to the artifacts section. You're going to notice something. I have 8 artifacts. Not one of them is a one that taps for colorless.
Right.
And I like the.
And you need to actually produce the colorless mana to fire off Mirror Ball.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the
I
biggest
hadn't thought
problem
of that.
with it.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's a good call.
And I'm just not running enough, like just true colorless producing lands
Okay.
to kind of do that. I have like a Swarm Yard and a Tainted Wood.
Yeah, Grim Backwoods, I think, but yeah, you don't have many.
Yeah, I don't have many, and there's not a ton of way to find the correct color, non-color
That makes sense.
creation.
How about you guys? Anything else about lands? It was relatively straightforward. I didn't think there was much there.
I guess I'm kind of confused by Rogue's Passage, since it feels like you want to go wide in this deck. I don't know
Right.
why making one creature unblockable is beneficial.
Does that work very often? Like, does that win you games or do something that you need to have done?
So it turns out, what's really a lot better at going wide than like a Rats deck? A
What?
dedicated token deck is way better at going wide, and especially if in your meta you are play against a Reese the Redeemed.
Okay.
The whole like he plays it almost every week, and these are now 2/1s.
So you just need to get through
X1s.
sometimes.
Sometimes you just need to get that one, 22/1 beater.
No, that makes sense.
You just need to get that one guy in, hit him, and then he's gone. It's kind of it's a little strange, but like it did take me a long time to figure out that was something I needed.
Okay.
Understandable. Yeah.
Chris, anything from you on lands?
No, I think it looks good.
Yeah, it's a tight land base. That's roughly what I would run as well. So, let's look at artifacts since you brought it up. You are sitting at 9 artifacts, none of which I don't believe are mana rocks, correct?
None.
I mean, you have a couple different, like Ashnod's Altar makes mana, obviously, and Bantu's Monument reduces the cost, but so you're running pretty lean here in terms of extra mana. Eldrazi Monument is just a win condition, and that's some nice synergy here in this deck, because even the rat you sacrifice, you just bring it back into play, and even if it can't attack, it's immediately buffing the rest of your rats.
Yep.
So I like that a lot. That's a good call. Bantu's Monument, especially making those rats just cost 1 black.
1 black and you
I
gain a
know.
life.
And you gain a life, and you hit everybody else.
And you drain. Yeah, it's
that's
a nice
nice.
kind of alternate win condition. That's one. Like I was really really close to running Heartless Summoning when Relentless Rats was during Masters 25. But then that makes 0 sense to run in this deck because it would just kill off all my rats now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and actually looking at the artifacts again, and we mentioned, you touched on a Thrumming Stone before, but actually in a way that kind of makes the Rogue's Passage make a little more sense as well, because there's going to be times when you Thrumming Stone, 15 rats into play that you can't attack with that turn, but you can attack with the one guy that's
Been there.
now a 15/1, and you can Rogue's Passage him through for lethal.
Exactly.
So I see that I see that now. That little combo there is slick. Vanquisher's Banner, player at draw a card.
That's probably my favorite one.
That's gold. Actually, this is one of the few decks. Aether Vial makes perfect sense.
Oh yeah, I know. I love Aether Vial in this deck. It is. It is my favorite.
Now, did you have that? Was that in the Relentless Rats version?
Yes, it was.
It was
yes,
even there. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's so much. But here, being able to do it as a 2-drop is so much better to do it than it is when you got to pay 3 for it.
Yeah, there's like the synergies just go much higher when the CMC goes down here. I actually haven't had Vanquisher's Banner out on the table yet with it, so that one is still like in the testing phase of this deck. The other one that's still in testing phase is actually Thornbite Staff.
That was one of the ones I was going to ask you about.
Yeah, so
it does auto attach.
helps.
It attaches for free to Meren because she's a shaman, and it's
Yeah,
shaman
but
equipment.
Yep, but it's not there for Meren at all.
What's it there for?
Marinar.
Oh, is that Marinar's a shaman?
No, he's not.
He isn't.
I have
so what
to.
is
I will have to pay for it to attach. But let's take Marinar. Let's give him a read real quick. He is 3 black legendary creature rat rogue, a 2/3. He says all rats have fear, so that's already a pretty great power to have for your rats. And then he also has tap, sacrifice a rat, put X 1/1 black rat creature tokens into play, where X is the number of rats you control.
Oh no!
I see where this is going.
So if we have Thornbite Staff attached to Marinar, and we tap him, sacrifice a rat, and make a whole bunch of 1/1 rats, well, wait, Thornbite Staff just untapped my Marinar. And
so
now,
you can then put them up. Oh.
so I can make them infinitely big. So I haven't managed it yet, but it's something I'm looking forward to trying and see if it's actually worth maybe putting in a different tutor package to maybe try to get. So we'll see how it goes when it comes out.
Well, that's such a weird, janky backdoor combo that it's
Nobody's
absolutely worth trying just to do it. Even if you don't keep it in the deck long term, just being able to pull it off one time will feel so
do
good.
It once, yeah, exactly.
That's one of those combos that someone's gonna be like, "Wait a minute, explain it to me,
Right,
please."
you have to walk somebody through exactly what's going on, and then they're gonna be like, "Really, that card?
You're doing what to me?"
I like it.
All the things. That's what we're doing.
Right, exactly. All the rat things. So you clearly weren't running any rocks there, and I'm assuming Ashnod's Altar is there mostly to be able to sack rats so you can proc Meren.
Yeah. I mean, in an ideal world, it should be Phyrexian Altar, especially now that I just need to produce, ideally 1 black with Bantu's Monument out. But it turns out Phyrexian Altar is not only hard to find, but also expensive.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Although it is not on the reserve list, so that could technically wind up being reprinted here at some point.
Well, yeah, that should have happened.
Right. It should have been done
3 years
at
ago.
Some point years ago.
Yeah. So that's kind of where that's at. I mean, and then the third biggest reason to switch to Rat Colony for a deck like Meren is right here in our artifacts, and it's the lovely Skull Clamp.
Yeah.
I can now attach Skull Clamps and get Meren procs and draw cards, and it solves a lot of problems with the deck.
And then recast the rat that you just sacrificed.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's just
so
perfect.
Like it's one of those things is where you play your Relentless Rat and you attach a Skull Clamp and you just kind of sit there and go, do something.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So the one artifact I had suggested out of the one artifact you don't have that I wanted to ask about was Jet Medallion. And you already do have Bantu's Monument. And Jet Medallion's good most of the time, but in this particular deck, I went through and counted 66 cards in your deck hit the reduction. So that's including land. So that's basically all but let's see, what is it? All but 9 spells in this deck get saved to mana. That's fantastic. I think that's almost too hard to resist.
I actually hadn't considered it.
Okay.
Jet Medallion is 2 to cast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or is it 3?
It's 2 to cast.
Might actually beat Bantu's Monument out in this.
And at that point in time, when you drop that on turn 2, that means turn 3 you can drop 2 rats.
Or 3 rats.
3 rats.
3 rats, technically, right, if you've got enough black mana for it.
I think it's just better than the Monument in general because it's any black spell.
Right, it's all because you've got a ton of other black spells in this deck as well, or black-green, but that still counts. So
I actually like.
I would probably try to consider running both of them, but given the choice between the two, not that Bantu's is bad because all the rats you're going to cast are going to drain you a decent bit of life too. But I think I would be tempted to run both.
I actually just hadn't actually considered it. It's in my Gonti deck, and so I just like, huh.
Yeah,
Well,
usually, and I do the same thing. Like I usually don't think about it outside of mono. any of the medallions are basically like monocolor decks only. I never considered them for multicolor decks.
Yeah.
But this is a weird
But
deck that's mostly
It's almost
black.
yeah, it's black splash green.
Right.
Like 100%. There's no way around that, unfortunately.
I have one more thing on artifacts. When it used to be a Relentless Rats deck, did you have artifact ramp like a Soul Ring or anything like that?
So Soul Ring was actually a pretty early cut in the deck.
Okay.
Now, if we're talking like the beginning days of I don't know how many of you guys actually remember the days of Commander during Return to Ravnica, but that was when the partial mulligan was still kind of like a thing. So at that time, my Maronar version was only running 30 lands,
Okay.
and Soul Ring was still cut early in that version. It turns out that the colorless mana just means almost nothing to me in these decks. There has almost always been very few cases where the second colorless mattered to me.
All right.
So it got the cut really early.
Okay.
Anything else with artifacts that's worth touching on before we move on to enchantments?
You guys keep taking all of mine.
We're taking all Chris's ideas. All right, so look at enchantments. You're running 6 enchantments, and I'll quick list them all. You've got Blood Bond March, Concordant Crossroads, Elemental Bond, Growing Rights of Itlimoc, Journey to Eternity, and Phyrexian Arena. And I will note as we go past Growing Rights of Itlimoc, nobody even suggested Gaia's Cradle in the land section because it's now $400 or something.
Another card that got bought out.
God.
Well,
the other big problem with that is it produces green.
Right, that's true. Blood Bond March is a super cool card that you would never run in any deck, literally, except for this one.
Yeah, I know. I love it. It was one of the cheapest foils I've ever had to buy. It was like a quarter. It was wonderful.
For those that don't know, Blood Bond March is 2, a black and a green, and whenever a creature spell is played, each player returns all cards with the same name as that spell from his or her graveyard to play. So basically, if you've got rats in the graveyard and you play a rat, they all come back into play. That's that's busted in this deck, and it's useless in every other deck that exists, pretty much.
I won't lie that it was one of the biggest reasons why I brought it to green, the deck to green. There's similar effects in white, but not as explosive, and that's kind of what I wanted my rats deck to be, was to be very explosive.
You have Concordant Crossroads in here, which is just a 1-drop that gives all your creatures haste, essentially, in green. It gives all creatures haste, not just yours. So you do have to be a little bit careful with it. But again, Thrumming Stone, and that's sitting in your hand, the game's just over then.
Yep. And, when you only if you are on turn 4 or 5, and if you've managed to cast 3 or 4 rats, and you drop a Concordant Crossroad, and your last rat that you cast was there. So if we have 4 rats out, that is going to be those are all 5/1s. Or no, sorry, 6/1s. And so they're going to be swinging, and if you all swing at one player, they're going to die very quickly that way.
Yeah, that's not going to take long to kill somebody at all.
Yeah, and so the haste is oddly relevant, but hard to actually pull off in green and black. That's kind of the reason why you would want to go red, is so you can get the haste a little bit more. But we're those are other options out there. This is the green deck, so we kind of have to take our lumps.
Growing Rights is probably pretty easy to flip in this deck, and when it comes into play, it lets you dig down, so that's always useful.
Mm-hmm.
How have you liked Journey to Eternity so far? I have not.
Haven't had it out yet.
Okay, you've not even got it out yet.
Yeah, Journey to Eternity was originally in my Relentless Rats deck. It was initially in there just so I can do the completely busted open of turn 2 Tribe Elder, and then turn 3 I put Journey to Eternity on Tribe Elder, sacrifice Tribe Elder because he came back, and then I have 3 more lands on that turn. but I don't know how well it's going to perform in this particular deck. It's probably it's if I don't see it soon, it's probably going to be on the chopping block sooner than later.
Could you use it as some sort of protection for Meren?
I could. That's not a bad idea.
Because that's something I noticed. You don't have a lot of protection for Meren, but it seems like she's more of your plan B than your plan A.
Yeah, that is actually an artifact of almost all my decks. The commander is almost always plan B. They often just augment what I'm already going to be doing. So that if like I have the mana sitting around, I'll cast it. So that's kind of where I come from on the commander side of things.
Well, it makes it way more difficult to shut down a deck too when the commander isn't the cog that keeps the whole machine working.
Right.
How has Elemental Bond worked for you? Elemental Bond's an enchantment, 2 and a green. Whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters battlefield, you draw a card. So it's pretty easy to have the rats up to 3.
Yeah, you need 2 rats. That's it.
And obviously Thrumming Stone, that's insane because it's ETB, it's not on cast. So if you have Thrumming Stone out, you just draw, everything.
So I used to have Lifecrafter's Bestiary in this slot instead. And the Scry is super powerful, but it turns out that actually having the additional green is just way too tough for me to keep up.
So no, that makes sense.
So every time I cast a creature, it would just come down to like, do I have the mana? I count out my green sources. It's usually like 2, and then the rest are black sources, and it's just like I don't know if I can really afford to dump more green mana into drawing a couple more cards off of these. So Elemental Bond kind of just like popped into my head one day, and I was just like, wait a second, this could actually be really good. I don't have to pay any additional mana for it. It can just kind of sit there and just wait for something to happen, and it triggers off of Meren as well. So these are all great things.
Yeah, no, I like it. Again, it's a card that probably isn't good in a lot of decks, but it's good in this deck.
Yeah, you usually see Elemental Bond in like big green decks,
right?
But this is one of those times where it's like it could actually go well in a go wide strategy.
So, do you ever have an issue of punching through with your rats?
I used to when it was mono black, but with Meren, not so much. Because usually when I'm swinging in with my rats and I have Meren out, I don't actually care if it gets through. My rats die, I get triggers, I'm happy, I get to start bringing back my resources, and hopefully I've actually started to knock down my opponent's resources. The kind of the way the deck turns out is that like the first 4 turns are like baller for me. I get a really great board presence, and then somebody board wipes, and it takes me until about the mid-late game to actually be another, like, to not just be completely hosed.
Okay.
So there's like that little mid-game area where that's when I haven't fully set up the recursion that needs to happen to kind of win the game. So like this is definitely an aggro deck. It just has a little bit of the like tail end punch that mono black just does not have.
Okay, because they make a 2-mana enchantment, since we're talking about enchantments, called Primal Rage, which gives your creatures all trample.
And 2 mana is pretty low to the ground. It's pretty easy to get out there as well. And it won't get 2 for 1 because it's not an aura. It's an enchantment.
Yep, it's a regular just static enchantment.
This would be a good deck because a lot of times green decks, the problem with Primal Rage is everything in green has trample for the most part.
Yeah, they do.
Or you run Overwhelming Stampede or Overrun.
Right, something like that. Where Primal Rage can sit there, you can cast it even if you don't need it. It doesn't hurt you. There's not much downside to it. But those rats, when they're like 8 or 9 or 10, and they're all trampling over, that makes punching through that damage a lot easier.
Yeah. Oh man, that also combos well with the some of the Ogre Lords in the deck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. All your rats have Death Touch. Yeah, that adds up very nicely. See, we're gonna make this tough on you, Patrick. You think your deck's all set, and now you're gonna have to like reconsider a couple things.
Well, I mean, listen. At time of recording, Dominaria still hasn't actually been officially released. I only have 2 rat colonies, so this deck isn't set in stone.
Oh man, I've already come up with like 12 of them.
Do you have that many already?
I haven't looked through my box that deep enough to check.
I asked him if he wanted. He's like, no, I want to wait till I get foils.
Yeah. Like, man, yeah, I do need foils. So, again, if you have any foil rat colonies, especially with the nice pre-release stamp on them, I will gladly take them off your hands for the low price of free.
That's true, and they actually would come with a stamp, won't they? Because there was one slot. Was that, or was that no? That was just the legend.
That was just the legend.
So there aren't those with pre-release stamps because
yeah, they are. Yeah, there are, because you get the normal pre-release one, and then you also have the legend one.
Right, but rats wouldn't have been legends.
No, but the other ones also have a pre-release stamp on them.
Right, so the
But
first...
that's only a rare, I think.
Yeah, the original...
Oh, is it only
so you
rares?
have either a rare or a legend.
Oh, no.
There's no room for a non-legendary, non-rare.
Well, especially if you have a rat colony with a pre-release stamp, I'll take it off your
Right,
hands.
right, that's right.
Sweet.
For sure, yeah.
Okay, I know what I'm
That
doing
would be
tonight.
that would be the best deck, the Relentless Rats foils that have the pre-release stamp where none exists. That would be highly sought after.
My stamp is legitimately going to say pre-release on it.
Right, that's all I was going to say. All right, so let's flip over and take a look at instants. You got 5 instant spells in the deck. Beast Within, Costly Plunder, Heroic Intervention, Putrefy, and Wretched Confluence.
Yep.
So Beast Within is easy because you're playing green, and so Beast Within goes in that deck because it's the best removal. It might be the best for targeted removal spell in the game. It's up there.
Yep.
Costly Plunder is draw 2
By sacking a creature or artifact.
Sacrifice a creature or artifact. However, like that's supposed to be a downside, right? Sacrificing a creature or artifact. In this deck, though, like it isn't. That's a way to put counters on Meren, or get rid of an artifact that you're no longer using. Like, maybe that Whip of Erebos is not done. I don't know why you would sacrifice that, but for the most part, you're probably going to be hitting a rat with it, I would assume.
Well, the artifact part is actually more for protection for Thrumming Stone.
Sure, if someone wants to steal it or exile it, you can just destroy
exactly. So I can, and
bring it back.
Bring it back later. I actually might need to reconsider my artifact recursion more now, because it used to be with Eternal Witness was in the deck, but it's not in there anymore. So I might have to think about that a little bit more. Okay.
And Heroic Intervention just solves a lot of problems that you would have.
Oh, yeah.
Putrefy destroys a lot of problems that you may have, so that's great too. So the one is Wretched Confluence, which is a great card, but having to leave 2 black free at instant speed, I feel like that's a tough thing for this deck to do.
It is, but it's there for the late game. So there is a secret sub-theme to the deck. You can see it if you just click the converted mana cost.
And you have, is it the 5-drop stuff that you can grab?
It is the 5 drops, yeah. So it is the 5 drops is the second secret theme, and Wretched Confluence is a 5-drop. It's not unusual for me to hit 5, and being able to search up 5 drops is really important.
Okay. Well, let's move on to that section then, the sorceries, because there's a lot more of those. And that's where Brain Spoil is. So Brain Spoil is an old school transmute card from the original Ravnica block, and it says destroy target creature that isn't enchanted. It can't be regenerated, and that's 5 mana, like you mentioned. But you can transmute it. So for 2 black and a colorless, you can basically discard it and search up a 5-drop and put it into your hand. So it's a tutor for a 5-drop.
Yeah.
And you can get Wretched Confluence. I would assume your primary target is usually Thrumming Stone.
Actually, it's not these days. Thrumming Stone is really like a plan B for this deck nowadays. If I was in a new group of people, I would probably go for Thrumming Stone much more often. But if you've played against a Relentless Rats deck or a Rat Colony deck more than a handful of times, the Thrumming Stone just gets hosed every single time. So I usually go for something like Patriarch's Bidding or Marinar these days. The Living Death and Eldrazi Monument are also kind of high up on the scale.
So that makes sense. Now, the question is, I'm assuming, though, Do you ever cast the Brain Spoil as a kill spell?
I have.
You have?
Yeah.
And I know it's not a cheap card anymore, Demonic Tutor, but like I feel like just having a conditionalist tutor in that slot would probably be better a vast majority of the time.
I agree.
But it's also
agree.
it's also closing in on $30. It's not a cheap card for one.
I mean, I have one. It's in my Gonti deck. But so here's the real kind of the secret sauce behind Brain Spoil is that when I want to transmute it or when I want to cast it, it's going to be past turn 3.
Okay.
Period. All right. I need to be casting creatures on turn 1 and 2. When you want Demonic Tutor is on 1 and 2. That because you're able to set up your hand really well, and by running just this, Brain Spoil is pretty much my only tutor outside of the Rat Catcher, and Sidisi, and so it turns out that Brain Spoil just is an all-star every single time it's in my hand, whereas Demonic Tutor will oftentimes just be dead in my hand because most of the so let's say you get this late game and you have 3 rats out and you do a Demonic Tutor. You can get anything, and you can get, I don't know, another rat colony. You can get like these. Your deck is so aggro focused that having something that isn't really helping you do the one thing is actually kind of bad. It gives you too many choices.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess I kind of see what you're saying, but I also feel like being able to grab a Triumph of the Hordes just to end the game is really useful. Or like if you are hurting, like the board state has gone south and you need to reset things, you can, if you have Demonic Tutor, you can grab a Toxic Deluge or even a Decree of Pain that you can't get with Brain Spoil. And I mean, Heroic Intervention is always useful to have in hand. Like I realize, I see what you're saying, but I think the freedom to get anything at any time and not have to tell anybody what you got feels like it's so strong.
I think you also underestimate how powerful it is to reveal what you got.
Sure, I mean, guys, well, you can still reveal it if you have Demonic Tutor.
Yeah.
Nothing's stopping you from showing what that card is.
That never works when we're playing.
Right.
When I do reveal that Thrumming Stone, everyone on the table knows what's going to happen next. And so,
sure.
And then you know what you do on your next turn? You don't cast Thrumming Stone.
Okay. But you can get Skull Clamp with Demonic Tutor.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I mean, there.
But no, I see what you're saying. So we've talked about that. Let's move on a little bit to a couple other ones under sorceries. You have Decree of Pain, which is just ridiculous in most decks. It's greedy. Like I always feel like it's greedy, but I run it anyway because you draw 10 cards and that's always feels good. Do you have Decree of Pain in any of your decks, Chris? Is it an Alesha?
Used to be.
I'm not sure if it still is anymore.
How about you, Max? Do you have anything? You don't play many black decks.
I have Crash, and it is in Crash.
It is in Crash. It just feels. It always feels great to do, and it feels backbreaking when someone else casts it.
I think the one time I've casted it in Crash, I cycled it.
Okay.
Because it killed a bunch of tokens and Crush got bigger.
The cycle mode is perfectly relevant too, particularly if you would be playing against like a Colony of Rats deck where they're all 1 toughness.
So that's another thing that I actually really like about Decree of Pain in this deck is that it actually acts as protection for my board.
So if you needed to, you could cycle it to keep someone from exiling everything or something.
Yeah, Merciless Eviction could just just totally wipe out all 20 rats I have,
or that stupid red card that someone in our shop plays all the time.
Insurrection. Yeah,
exactly. And so it can really act as a protection for my entire board if need be. Otherwise, I'm never going to say no to 10 free cards.
Right, exactly. Or 15 or 20. I mean, like, I've seen just insane amounts of cards against a token deck, and you said you play against a Reese the Redeem deck. You can just draw gross amounts of cards.
Oh, yeah.
Driven to Despair is next on here, and it's the green half, gives your creatures trample, which is something we discussed as being super useful here. And the best part about that is when it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So that's that can be a wild swing in this deck if you get that out. And it's only 2 mana to cast that half of it. And the Despair half does the opposite, Creatures you control gain menace or tougher to block, and when they deal combat damage, that player discards a card. And technically, you can cast those. I mean, you just cast the first half, then it's in the graveyard, and assuming you've hit Aftermath, there's nothing to hit. You just can then cast the second half.
Yep. Assuming I have 2 more mana.
So 4 mana, those rats have trample. They draw you cards, and they wreck someone else's hand.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a perfect fit for this deck.
One of the hardest things to do in an aggro deck is to refill your hand. And because you put so much of your resources into your board presence, when you can just cast Driven to Despair, refill your hand, and make people have less answers, things just go much better for you.
Next we have Farseek, which you're running as your ramp spell at 2 mana.
There's also a rampant growth in the deck.
Yep. There's also is there? I didn't see that one.
Yep.
Rampant growth. Okay. Yep. There's rampant growth. So is there any reason you're running those 2 over, say, Nature's Lore?
Nature's Lore it was in the Relentless Rats deck version, but it turns out you can't foil Nature's Lore.
Hey, I feel you. I feel the pain.
So I already have a foil Farseek and foil Rampant Growth, and so that's where they are. Yes, Rampant Growth would be cut for Nature's Lore if I could have a foil of it.
Okay, but, no, that's legit. I buy that logic.
It's not the world we live in.
I keep hoping that was like another one of the cards in M25. I was hoping we'll get a reprint just so we get a foil, but I guess we're waiting for the next master set to not get it, along with Phyrexian Altar and Crucible Worlds, all their cards that we keep waiting for reprints of. So let's see. We have Gaze of Granite, which is kind of like a Pernicious Deed.
Yeah, I want to stop on this one.
All right, because I was going to stop on it too.
Okay. Now, I understand Gaze of Granite hits Planeswalkers.
Yes.
And Pernicious Deed doesn't.
Yep.
Is that the only reason you're running it over Pernicious Deed?
No.
What's the other reason?
I like it better than Pernicious Deed.
Why would that? And why is that? That's a good reason to run it, but why is that?
I don't like the rattlesnake effect.
You want to be able to do it and be done. Okay, that's fair.
Okay, so there, yes, the installment plan on mana is way better on it, but letting everybody actually play into my Gaze of Granite is way better for me.
Okay.
So that's really what it is.
Okay.
Now, what would you say on average is the number you set X to in here?
4 or 5, actually.
So if you're usually doing it for 4 or 5, the one other card I was kind of wondering might do the same thing would be All Is Dust. Because number one, you're forcing a sacrifice, so you hit indestructible stuff, none of which is your stuff. I guess the difference would be all Is Dust leaves artifacts around.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you've got some artifacts you are really fond of and really want to have around. So I don't know if I would necessarily make that swap either. I'm just was pointing out as something to maybe consider. Like next time you cast Gaze of Granite, or the next couple times, maybe just ask yourself the question: would All Is Dust be better in a situation?
Yeah, it's not a bad point.
Because there's those times when you're playing that deck that has a bunch of 7 or 8 drops in, and you're like, oh man, I got to spend 11 mana or 12 mana. And if you're frequently spending 7 anyway, all of a sudden at that point, it's going to just clear everything, and it's going to sometimes save you mana and be maybe a little more consistent, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, until he runs into a colorless deck.
Right. Well, that's the downside. Like the colorless deck is where that goes south in a hurry. Okay, so next we got Life's Legacy, which is a card I absolutely love. 2 mana, sacrifice a creature, and draw cards equal to that creature's power. If only it was instant speed, which would be broken. That would be.
Well,
not.
I mean, that's Momentous Fall,
right?
But that costs 4.
That costs 4.
So,
but like even if you only hit like a rat, when there's 3 or 4 or 5 out, that's pretty efficient drawing 4 or 5 cards for 2 mana.
Exactly.
And then you can recast the rat with Meren. That's just great synergy. Living Death. So you're going to swap all the critters in the graveyard back into play.
That's where Concordant Crossroads also comes into play.
Living Death is one of those cards that always screws me over when someone else plays it against me. And it never feels like I want to run it. Like it never feels like it's good in my decks, but it's great in everyone else's deck. Like I don't know why that is. Because I've tried it before and never made it.
Yeah,
had it be bonkers. But whenever someone else casts it against me, it just feels devastating.
It feels so good.
It does. So it's one of those cards that if you just top deck into it, you're completely basing on luck whether or not it's going to work well for you. But if you draw it like turn 3 or it's in your opening hand and you're really able to actually set up your board state in such a way where it feels like you're really far behind because you keep having to like, oh no, I only have this one creature and I just traded it out. Oh no. If you're able really to sell that and then all of a sudden you just do, it's okay, turn 6, living death, and you just bring back just this ton of value, that's when it really shines. The upside on that card is really high. You just don't want to be top decking it.
Right, for sure. Or you don't want to be going against like the person who's running Sign of the Ur-Dragon and pitching dragons into his graveyard, which is where I see it happen way too much in our meta. Hey, there's a bunch of 9-drop dragons that just got put back into play. That'll be fun. So next we got Maelstrom Pulse, which is just great removal, particularly if you're playing with a lot of tokens. Night's Whisper is just great draw. Patriarch's Bidding, bring all those rats back into play. That's all excellent. Plague of Vermin was a card I hadn't really seen before.
Yeah.
And basically people can bid life to put a rat token into play.
Yeah.
That is awesome when your rats get +1/+1 for each other rat in play.
Yeah.
So is that won you games before? I bet it has.
I haven't actually played it yet.
Oh, is that a new addition to the deck?
It's completely new. So in the Relentless Rats deck, it does make a ton of sense to put in because I only had, in the mono black version, there were cards like Swarm of Rats, and there's a couple of weird ones that are just like X ones that are just have that are essentially Rat Colony. Only they just count the raw number of rats you control. So there it would have been great, but I hadn't heard of the card before. So now that I can actually care about how many rats I have, Plague of Vermin is going right back in.
Okay.
Also, yeah, I'm aggro. Who cares about life totals?
Right,
am I
that's
right?
true. You can afford to lose it.
Chris is pumping his fist over here.
Yeah, mono red player for life. Who cares about life?
We are all. I at one point I've talked in the show about how I'm careless with my life total. We're all careless with our life total when we play Commander. We are all just like not wearing helmets.
Plus,
all right,
I'm never mind.
It's fun too. Well, that's fun too. Like that's the way to do it. All right, so Read the Bones, which is obviously a great card. Toxic Deluge is a great board wipe. Triumph of the Hordes, since you're a dirty infect player. And Wildest Dreams is the last one I wanted to specifically talk about.
Yep.
So it's green and XX, and return X target cards from your graveyard to your hand, and then exile Wildest Dreams. So that's a recursion spell. So you spend 3 mana to get 1 dude back, spend 5 to get 2, 7 to get 3. Have you? Is that a new addition, or have you had experience with that?
It is not a new addition. It came in along with Secret Salvage during Aether Revolt, and Wildest Dreams State, for good reason, I think. Recursion is good, and I already have plenty of creature recursion, so I needed something that hit a much wider target. So I could have gone with another Eternal Witness or something like Regrowth or something like that. But what's the card? Splendid Reclamation, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, not that one. It's the Seasons Past. Seasons Past is the you can return cards to your
permanent
hand
of each CMC.
Each CMC, which is the worst thing for this deck because I'm going to have 15 2-drops in my yard, and I can only return 1 of those. So Seasons Past is just straight out. Wildest Dreams actually performs very well for me.
Well, here's the only thing I would say about that, though, is like even if you want to return 2 of those rats, you're at 5 mana, and if you want to return 3, you're at 7. I think there's not going to be a lot of times you're going to be able to sink enough mana into this anyway to draw like 3 or 4 rats.
I'm not returning rats.
Well, then if you're not returning rats, then Seasons Pass is going to get you.
Better
I
stuff.
feel like it's going to get you more cards more often than Wildest Dreams does,
So
and it doesn't exile itself.
the
It gets shuffled
other
back in.
Yeah, I'm still not sold on it. Because
Uh,
the option to get a rat is great.
Sure.
And if I need to get back like Thornbite Staff and a rat, I need to be able to do that. The CMC restriction is just way too costly for me. When I do want to return a rat, it's usually because I have Bloodbond March in my hand, so I only need to get the one anyway. There's very few reasons why I don't need to get just like 2 cards or something like that. But I mean, yes, Seasons Past is a wonderful card. I just don't think it's for this deck.
Okay.
I do like the versatility of it, though, after he explains it.
Sure. I mean, yeah, being able to get whatever you want, not have to be restricted by CMC in a deck that has this many overlapping CMCs. I still don't know if it's worth it, but I see the logic behind it.
Yeah, I mean, after watching you play my my Relentless Rats deck, Dana, I can see exactly why you would hate Wildest Dreams in here.
Well, we played it
fact
very
that-
differently, didn't we? If I remember
Yeah, we
correctly.
do, absolutely. Because you need to you need to run it as an aggro deck first and foremost, and second of all, you need to run it where most of your card advantage is coming from Meren,
Right.
and attacking. That's
And I
just the
wasn't really
way-
playing aggro with it, was I?
No, you weren't. You were waiting for the combo, and that's the mono black version. But
Gotcha.
This is not that. This is not the mono black version.
I'm assuming you were playing it very similar to your Glissa deck.
Yes, yes, kind of. That's my trick apparently, is to play everyone else's deck like one of my decks. Like I played Max's. I mentioned that in last week's show, playing Max's Dramoka deck like my Sphinx deck. All right, so let's look at your creatures here, which are mostly rats. You've got 28 creatures, but really only 8 unique creatures. Crypt Rats, which is just Pestilence on a rat.
Yep.
Ink Eyes, and he's got Regeneration and Ninjutsu, I believe.
Nope.
yes.
Oh yeah, Regenerate. It does have Regenerate. Holy cow.
Shows how often you use Regenerate.
I mean, it's just like Swarmyard. I literally forget it has Regenerate target rat on it all the time because like, why would I just usually tap it. I'll even during my turn, I'll be like, I'll leave Swarmyard over here, make sure it's gonna be nice and in my face so that I know I can use it when people attack me and I can do some tricks, and then I'll just let things die because who cares? But yeah.
You've got Maronar, who is your previous commander, and Azumi Grave Robber, who I believe you were doing some tricks with that time we played.
Oh God, I love that card. It is.
So that's one of the Kamigawa. What are those?
Flip enchantment.
Those are technically flip cards, but what is he? He flips into an enchantment, right? Or no?
He flips into a 4/2 rat wizard.
And you can put a creature from a graveyard
Into
What does
play
it
under
do?
your control.
Into play.
For 4 and a black.
Yep.
and he buffs your other rats as well.
He buffs my other rats. He does things that he's incidental graveyard hate. And if you can get him on turn 2 or turn 3, and somebody cracks their first fetch land or something like that, you just do that, and you have a 4/2 that can start reanimating big creatures if anybody is putting them in your yard. He's a force onto his own for just 2 mana, and he should probably see more play than he does.
Ogre Slumlord to give those rats death touch and make tokens when stuff dies. That's just a good card. Pointing out that synergy with the trample enchantment makes me like that even. Primal Rage makes me like that even more.
Oh yeah,
here.
it's great with Crypt Rats too.
Yeah,
It's just
for sure.
a 1 minute wrath.
You have Pack Rat, which we mentioned before, and it's just a disgusting strong card. And Ratcatcher and Sidisi, the one non-rat.
Yeah, she's the last holdover.
And
She's too good.
I mean, she's just a good.
She's
card
just
in
too
general.
good. She's just too good in the deck to take out at this point. Yeah.
If this was considered a rat tribal deck, I'm pretty sure Dana would call you a hack because you aren't running all rats.
I believe that was my exact words in the EDH Recast. I said if you're using non-creatures in your tribal deck, you're a hack.
Yeah, I mean,
But his general's not a rat
That's
either.
true. That's true.
well,
And it's
I
not-
like
it's
to
not a tribal
pretend that the
deck. It's
dragon
fine.
in the
Okay.
background is actually a rat. So
Okay, it's a giant rat in the background.
yeah, exactly.
Hey, if you've thought it through, that's good enough.
Yeah, I mean the reality is it basically reads it's 5 mana, search a card for a library, search a card from your library, and gain an experience counter.
Yep.
That's the way it plays out 90% of the time.
And if you have something worse that you can sack, you've got that 4/6 body with Death Touch is nothing to sneeze at either.
Yep, exactly. She's saved the day many a times when all my rat colonies get exiled. So.
Well, is there anything else from either of you two guys you want to ask Patrick, or suggestions you want to throw out here for this rat deck? The one thing I skipped past it in the sorceries that I'd be really tempted to maybe find a slot for maybe is Overwhelming Stampede, just because it's always so good. And in this case, you're going to have like 5/5 bodies that turn into 5/1 bodies that are turn into 10/1 bodies. Actually, they get +X/+X, so they'll get slightly bigger toughness too, and trample. I mean, you're just going to kill people, but you
Double
do have time
green.
for the hordes too.
And the double green is going to be hard for him to
Double green's
hit.
tough as well, yeah.
Isn't it triple green for overwhelming?
That's Overrun is triple green. Overwhelming Stampede is
okay.
double green.
In 3.
Yep. But in 5 mana is nothing either. But I feel like that will give you that.
Actually,
that's one
might
more
be
kill
better than
condition.
Triumph. It's probably better than Triumph because it's a 5-drop.
And you can brain spoil it.
That's true, and you can you can brain spoil it. That's true. That's a good call.
I'm on the brain spoil
I wanted to
bandwagon.
try. I really wanted to try Triumph the Hordes out, and I really like the idea of it, but I mean the reality is I'm just looking to finish the game when I cast it. Not really any other synergy.
Infectious Rats is cool, but the game's over anyway, probably.
Yep.
So
It's flavor too. That's what it is.
it is. Yeah. No, I would tend to agree.
Rats have diseases, so you're gonna get
Right.
infected.
So so are you going to have this deck fully converted over in time for GP Vegas? Is the question.
Depends on when I can move back to my apartment.
Okay.
The short answer to that is that a water leak caused me and my girlfriend to have to move out for several months, and almost all of my Magic collection got put into boxes and is in a storehouse right now.
So you're relying on that to have your cards accessible for the trip to Vegas.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So yeah, it's rough. But I mean,
if you're a listener and you have foil Relentless Rats and you want to contact Patrick about it and make his life a little bit easier, even though his cards are in storage, he can probably then use those rats you send him to be ready for GP Vegas if you want to play a game against him.
yeah, I'll be down for that. You'll be able to be very bewildered by my play style.
That is the correct adjective.
Exactly.
Because I know I was when we played.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. You'll be there. We'll all be there, so that you'll be able to find at least 3 of the 4 of us. Since Chris has got a secret mission to Morocco that week. He can't make it. He's doing some government work. We can't talk about it. Just keep an eye on CNN. Any international incidents? That's Chris.
And
But the
this will
rest
be
of
the
us will
last
be there.
podcast that
Right,
we ever have.
right.
'Cause now I have to take these 2 out back and dispose of them.
I heard nothing.
We'll just cut that out in post. It'll be fine. So before we do our sign-off question here, Patrick, is there you want to drop some contact information on people so they can find you on Twitter and wherever else you're available on the internet?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at Detective Yarmus. That's detective spelled out and then YARMAS. There is a somewhat long story about why it is that, but that is what it is. Otherwise, you can look forward to my next combo corner, probably out next month sometime. It would be my guess, given that there's like 5 days left of the month. That should be about food chain combo, so that'll be fun.
Good deal. Sounds good. So our final question here, and we'll have Patrick answer it as well. I'll throw it there for everybody. So the next expansion we're going to get for Magic is Battle Bond, and that's in early June, I want to say.
Yep.
But we'll start getting spoilers not too awful long, like in 3 weeks, I think. So that's an expansion geared for Two-Headed Giant. That's multiplayer technically. So there's not a lot of room in most expansions for multiplayer mechanics that we've had over the years. Is there any particular multiplayer mechanic you'd like to see them bring back for Battle Bond.
Should we let Patrick go first?
Sure. You got any ideas, Patrick, or anything you want to throw out there?
So the most obvious one is I would like them to actually use Surge in a normal way instead of like in a ham-fisted it's now a two-headed giant.
Right. That was the only
like,
thing
I
remotely
wanna-
two-headed giant about that format was Surge.
Yeah. Outside of that, this is going to be it's a multiplayer set, but it's still 1v1
Technically,
set.
right.
So that's really where. So voting mechanics are right out, because you're not going to get anywhere with that. And I believe it's still a draft set. I
think it will be. Yeah.
I really do enjoy a lot. I really enjoy anything that they adjust drafting with. Garbage Fire is just a great card when you're drafting. So,
All right, Max. What about you? What do you got?
I think this would be a great opportunity to put partner on some creatures for us commander players.
Oh, you know what? That never even occurred to me. I guess I don't know what that would do.
It doesn't
in-
have to do
just
anything
to
in
do
Battle
it,
Bond,
just
just
to be
to
there.
do
All
it.
right.
yeah,
No, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great. Wizards isn't going to do it though.
No, they're
I'm
not.
telling you that right now.
I
How
can
about you?
dream.
Right. How about you, Chris? Any ideas?
Now I know they were changing the rules for two-headed giant, but I would like to see cards that do damage to each opponent type of deal.
Okay.
Because I do believe the new rules are where you target them as a team, not individually.
I think so. Yeah. My mechanic. Patrick said he thought vote mechanics were out, and will the council? Excuse me. What do we have? There was Will of the Council, and there was Council's Dilemma. But Will of the Council was the one where all votes mattered. Council's Dilemma, you had to go to the whatever vote got the most votes. But
Yep.
Will of the Council will be perfectly playable because your teammate, however they vote, you get the result you want anyway. So however the council votes, that's split up in any number of ways. What's the gross blue card that costs 9 or 10 mana or whatever?
Expropriate.
Expropriate. So everyone's vote affects expropriate, or same thing with Savala's Stampede.
Yep.
So you could do that in two-headed giant pretty easily, because your teammate would just vote the way you wanted them to. But that mechanic I think would be one that would work, and I'd like to see that come back. I think the voting mechanics are always a lot of fun.
Now, is this set gonna be expansion like standard legal?
It is not.
No.
Okay.
It's
The
like
conspiracy slot.
yeah.
Okay.
So it will not be something they can play in standard, but it'll be legal in Commander and Legacy, I would assume. So there could be some interesting stuff in there, and it could be like the last conspiracy set had a bunch of good old reprints, so they could easily throw Phyrexian Altar in here. I don't think they will, but we got Show and Tell in last set,
Berserk.
and Sneak Attack. So there was some pretty crazy stuff in conspiracy. We could see that all again. So, all right. Well, I think that is it for this week. I want to say thank you once again to Patrick for joining us. And you can find him and us at GP Vegas. We'll be back next week. Until then, I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
And I'm Patrick.